We're going to take a look at the top 10 comic book sales on eBay for the month of March 2023. There's some head scratchers, there's some deals, and there's some grails. Let's break it down. Up next on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Hey there, comic book community. This is Jim from Bronzeville Comics coming to you with another video. Before we get started, 4,000 subscriber giveaway is coming up pretty soon. I'll have the details on that shortly. We're within 40 subscribers, I think, of 4,000. And I'd like to thank everyone who has subscribed to the channel and followed us and liked and commented. I really appreciate all the feedback, or at least almost all of it. And all the people that have been following this channel and come up to me at shows and you know, say kind words. It truly is appreciated. I enjoy doing this. I hope you enjoy the content. And if you're not subscribed and you enjoy the content, go ahead and subscribe. I will have the details of the giveaway coming up, and it'll probably be books that we comment on, videos that we comment on in the month of April. Also, follow us on the other socials, Instagram, Bronzeville_comics. Same thing on Whatnot, Bronzeville_comics. If you're not yet signed up with Whatnot, there is a link in the description of this video. If you use that, you'll get $10 off your first purchase, regardless of who you buy something from, whether it's me or another vendor. We do sales every Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern on Whatnot. It's quite possible this coming week, next week, we'll have some pop-up sales during the day. Also, in the link of this description is my email and a link to my eBay store. So let's get into it. Every month recently I've been breaking down the top 10 sales on eBay, and they're interesting at times. Sometimes more interesting than others, and sometimes I can't quite figure it out, and you all have your theories about what's going on. So share that in the comments. But I'm going to start with number 10 on the list, and it is the only Raw book on the list, and it's the only DC book on the list. It is a copy of Showcase number 4, a Raw copy that sold at auction with 43 bids for $14,889. And of course, this book is the first appearance of Barry Allen as the Silver Age Flash. And this is a lot of money for a Raw book. And I guess, I'm not sure, you know, who put it up. It was someone without a lot of feedback. And, you know, not a lot of comic books. They only have one other comic book. So I guess they found this Grail and decided to put it up for auction. And they got 14 grand for it. Now, the question is, and we'll take a look at, take a closer look at the pictures that were provided. There were just 4 pictures. And you can see that the book does have a spine roll. That would be fixable with a press. There's a little piece missing out of the center, that spine on the front, but it looks from the pictures that the spine is pretty secure. But definitely the book has a subscription crease running vertically from top to bottom, and that does adversely affect the grade. There's a crease in the top corner. There's some little chipping at the top, and there's definitely some spine wear. The books in the interior pages show that the page quality is reasonably good, and this shot of the first page shows that the staples are pretty firmly attached, which is a big deal. And then we go to the splash page of the second story, and you see that subscription crease running through. That could probably be pressed out of the interior pages, but it will not be pressed out of the front cover. And then we look at the back cover, and it's got this nasty crease on the back that runs, ooh, gosh, that's going to be at least like a 5-inch crease on the back left, and a little bit of a rip at the top. Again, the effects of the spine roll. So this will definitely benefit from a press. I had it kind of at a 3.0, maybe a 3.5. So the buyer paid just under 15 grand for this. Fair market value of 3.0 is 18 grand. Fair market value of a 2.5 is 16 grand. I don't see it getting less than a 2.5. And a 2.0 is 13.5. So if you get a 3.0 out of this, I think the buyer is doing fairly well. Obviously, you have to pay to get it cleaned and pressed. unless you have, you know, the steady hands to work on this book yourself. and the cost of grading, which would be considerable, I guess 3% of fair market value. So you're talking about $450, somewhere in that range, to get it graded plus shipping. So, several hundred, let's say $600-700 on top of this. Still, if it comes back at 3.0, you're doing well. If it comes back at 3.5, very well. And if somehow you get a 4 out of this, which conceivable based on how clean that crease in the back can clean up, let me know in the comments below, looking at the pictures, and you can find this description, sold listings on eBay for a Showcase 4. Let me know what you think the potential grade is. Obviously, the grade as it sits is lower, but a clean and a press, getting rid of that spine roll and kind of making that crease on the back cover look a little bit better would help the book. Let me know what you think that this will come back as if it were to be graded. Again, I think it's a reasonably good deal, a little bit of a risk, but a reasonably good deal for the buyer. And we, obviously, one of the concerns with a book, and there's no picture of the inside front cover, which is where you would be looking for a color touch. It doesn't, the seller doesn't really address that there's no restoration, but you'd have to actually go through pretty carefully to make sure there's no resto on that book. Up next, number 9 on the list is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 14 and a CGC 9.0 that sold in a Buy It Now for $15,000. This is the first appearance of the Green Goblin, and I think this was a fairly robust sale. The last 3 sales, it sold for $15,527 in December, and back last August it sold for $20,400. A copy sold last July for $11,100. So $15,000 I think is a pretty robust sale for this book. Obviously not the heights that it reached during the comic boom, but if you're getting the same, essentially the same price that you got in December, that's pretty good. So I think that was a good deal for the seller there. Now, this one, number 8 on the list, is one of the head scratchers. Amazing Spider-Man 252 Newsstand, CGC 9.8 Signature Series, signed by Stan Lee, that sold in a Buy It Now for $15,000. Of course, this book is the first appearance of the black suit, iconic cover, one of the grails of the, whether you refer to it as the late bronze or early copper, one of the grails of the 80s. $15,000 seems like quite a bit. The fair market value, or the last sale, I would say, of a newsstand at a 9.8 unsigned, a blue label, was $22,500. So you're talking about 6 2/3 times as much for this book. And just a few days later, a 9.8 Stan Lee signature sold for $3,300. So this is like 4.5 times that. I don't understand this sale. It is way out of line with 9.8s and 9.8 Signature Series historically on this book. I'm not sure what happened, but that is a curious sale at $15,000. Now, just to clarify, in making up the list, when I went through eBay sold listings, I did not include any of the listings that had an accepted offer. And that's when you go to sold listings, the sold listings are in green. And if someone had put a book up for a certain amount, let's say $10,000, and they accepted an offer for less than that, all you see is a vertical or a horizontal line through the $15,000, and you know that the buyer paid less than that, but you don't know if they paid $14,000 or $1,000. That information is not there. So I'm just going by the verified sales. And again, some of these, are head scratchers. So this 15 grand for the 9.8 Signature Series of ASM 252 is a head scratcher. Number 7 on the list, Fantastic Four, number 1, CGC 3.5, sold at auction for $15,988.88. The last sale was in September of last year for $24,000, so it's down about a third, about 33% since September. This is the lowest sale of this book in grade since November of 2020. So kind of right before the comic boom. Fantastic Four and X-Men Keys, those Fox properties that Disney acquired, kind of surged, especially in the comic boom, due to anticipation. People anticipating we're going to see the Fantastic Four, we're going to see the X-Men, we're going to see Galactus and Silver Surfer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're still waiting. So those books went up, I think, higher than the already established MCU properties and already announced MCU properties. And they have kind of since come down quite a bit. Just look at a Fantastic Four 48 in any grade for that. So Fantastic Four #1, we don't have casting news. We know there's a movie coming out, but it's been a long time between knowing that Disney acquired the Fantastic Four in acquiring Fox, the rights to produce those movies. Kevin Feige announcing back in, 2019, that, talking about Marvel's first family in the future, and where we are today, which is we do have a director attached, but we maybe are looking for hints. We don't have casting. We don't have a plot. We don't have any production photos. That hasn't gone into production yet. So the Fantastic Four books have cooled off a little bit, and this is indicative of that. I still think that's a fairly strong sale, considering you look at previous sales. So I think that's kind of, if the buyer's happy with it and the seller's happy with it, I don't think that really tilts one way or the other too strongly. Let's look at number 6 on the list. And this is a copy of Amazing Fantasy 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man in a CG 6.0 purple label restored, trimmed on all 3 sides. Sold at auction for $19,802. I would not want to be the seller here because the same book sold on January 29th of this year for $29,100. So almost a $10,000 hit on that book. That is, I'm just going to assume, let me double check. I want to make sure, because sometimes what happens is the buyer doesn't pay, and the seller relists the book. So even so, they thought they had sold it for, $29,000, and then they sell it for like $20,000 less. It was the same seller. So I'm guessing that $29,000 in January did not go through. That was at auction with 87 bids. So something happened. Somebody bid $29,100 and I guess didn't pay. And they outbid somebody who paid $29,000. The guy relisted the book and it came back $10,000 less. Ouch. Is a huge eBay seller with over 1 million feedback. So that is ouch. Guess figure they maybe they waited too long to try for somebody to try to pay. So yeah, ouch. That is a big hurt, because it's not a book that resold, but a book. I mean, it was lost potential revenue rather than just money, $10,000 that was laid out of pocket that didn't come back. So that's for a restored 6.0. The fair market value of a 6.0 blue label for Amazing Fantasy 15 is about $70,000. This is a 72% discount. So that's a pretty hefty discount. This, I think, definitely tilts in favor of the buyer, definitely not in favor of the seller when you consider what happened back in January. Number 5 on the list. Incredible Hulk #1 in a CGC 3.0, sold to buy it now for $21,999. I think this was good for the seller. Higher than the last 5 sales, and the highest recorded sale in grade since August of last year. Obviously, the first appearance of the Hulk, a very hard book to find, a big Silver Age Grail. Is the price fair? I think the price was robust. Again, I think the seller did pretty well. If I were the seller of this book, and I got that price, I think that's higher than what the person could have hoped for. So a good book there. Let's move on to number 4 on the list. This is another head scratcher. And it's similar to number 8 on the list. It's Iron Man number 1 in a CGC 5.0 signature series signed by Stan Lee and Robert Downey Jr. that sold for $22,222.22 in a buy it now. Fair market value of a Blue Label 5.0 is $650. Iron Man number 1. This is not Tales of Suspense 39. This is Iron Man number 1. Sold for $22,000. That's 34 times the fair market value of a Blue Label. I'm sorry, but Stan Lee's signature and Robert Downey Jr.'s signatures are not worth over $20,000. So this is a head scratcher. Again, a CGC 5.0, so definitely a mid-grade book. So the vast majority of the value of this book is in the signatures, and it wasn't an auction; it was a buy it now. $22,000. That seems a little suspect to me. I would be interested to see if this sale went through or if we see this book listed again. I should just double check. Sometimes it's worth, like, especially with these head scratchers, to see if the book has been relisted by the seller. So seller's other items. I think I had looked at this and I didn't see any Iron Man signatures. They have a lot of comic books, but I didn't see an Iron Man 1 signature series. So maybe they just ran to the bank with that 22 grand. Ooh, a David Cassidy number 1. $22. I kind of get intrigued by those TV, movie, pop culture books. I'm not going to buy a David Cassidy number 1. I do not need that in my collection. I was a Partridge Family fan, but, honestly, more for Susan Day than David Cassidy. Anyway, that is number 4 on the list. Let's move to number 3 on the list, and it's another restored copy of Amazing Fantasy 15, this time in a CGC 9.2 with rather extensive restoration, but the restoration is also categorized as no, this is an older slab, so they don't give it a at least on the label. It's a purple label, but they don't indicate the level of restoration. Usually they talk about A1, A2, B1, B2, etc., whether it's professional or not. It's extensive, and if you look at the label, what we see here is that is color touch, pieces added, spine reinforced, reglossing, and cleaned. So a thorough restoration on that book. And it's really, the regloss, the pieces added, and the color touch are restoration. This is not a conserved book. It sold for $31,782 at auction with just 4 bids. CGC 9, apparent 9.2. Oh no, that's not that's a different one. Where is the 9.2? There we go. I was looking at this, and this is an old label, so this was restored quite a while ago. Moderate, but P, does that mean professional? I'm not sure what the notations were at the time. The book looks great. It's a professional job of restoration. Unfortunately, I think that Amazing Fantasy is a plentiful enough book. It's not like a Detective 27 or a Superman 1 or anything, from the deep in the golden age where there's just a handful of books available. A 9.2 Blue Label had a sale in January for $810,000. This sold for $31,782. That's a 96% discount for this purple label. The question is, what grade would it have been otherwise? I don't know. A $31,000 book. $31,000 is approximately the fair market value of 3.5. So if this book had looked better than a 3.5, you probably should have kept it that way. But at least if you're completely a collector and the buyer, you got a good deal for this, and the book looks great. And it's an old label, so it doesn't stand out as much as a current purple label. It's kind of like, I guess, pink. Is that pinkish or pinkish purple? The colors were a little bit different back in about 20 or so years ago. Let's go to number 2, and we're not changing gears too much. This is Amazing Fantasy 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man, in a CGC 4.5 blue label that sold for $38,077 at auction after 113 bids. Now, this is higher than the 2 previous sales, which were for $34,800 and $37,200. Nowhere near the high from December of 2021 at $84,000. But that is just, typical of the market, I think. I don't think that that's too much of a deviation from what we see across the board for blue chip Silver Age keys. I think a pretty solid sale for the seller. Again, over the previous 2 sales, which in this market is a positive sign overall, that values are starting to creep up a little bit, and this is kind of a bellwether of values overall because it is such a highly sought after key. This is the Silver Age book to have for most collectors. So, and the fact that there were 113 bids on it means on eBay there was a lot of interest, and a lot of people who could afford to drop tens of thousands of dollars on a comic book. Let's look at number 1 on the list. I'm going to go to the Bronze Age. And maybe the biggest key of the Bronze Age, Incredible Hulk 181 in a CGC 9.8 white pages that sold for $72,500 at a Buy It Now. This is the best sale of a 9.8 since December 8th of last year. The 2 previous sales, $66,000 and $69,000, and down from the high in September of 2022 of $138,000. So, we're talking almost cut in half from its high. But again, I think we have to kind of almost ignore 2021 and 2022 sales when we're looking at the overall trends, especially for books that were established keys prior to the comic boom and have remained so, that are driven slightly by news concerning movies, TV shows, MCU, DCU, whatever. This was a key 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and it's going to remain a key. It does see some surges around news, but that's not going to really be the big driver of the price. Again, these top 2 sales for 2 mega grails, encouraging signs of what's happening overall, in that both of them are up over the previous 2 sales of the book in that grade. So that'll do it for us here. This is our monthly Top 10 eBay. I'd like to thank you for stopping by. Please leave a comment below. I said, take a look at number 10 on the list, that Showcase 4 Raw book. What do you think that would be graded at after a clean and a press? Not what it sits at now, but what it would be after a clean and a press. And hopefully I provided enough pictures, and you can, again, go on eBay sold listings as Showcase 4, and you can see the book for yourself. Only 4 pictures. The pictures were fairly clear, but, I might want to see the centerfold and all of the inside front covers, inside front and back covers. But anyway, leave a comment about that below. I appreciate you stopping by. In the meantime, you can take a look at a couple of my other videos here and here. And this is Jim saying until next time, enjoy your comics.